Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Hope everyone's having a great morning. Happy Monday morning, everybody. We are embarking on what is going to be a very active FOMC week. We do also, I shouldn't say as active as last week, but they're still going to be out there talking a lot, which means every single one of those events, every time the FOMC opens their mouth, any FOMC member, voting or non-voting, it seems, is affecting the way in which target rate probabilities are moving. This is the only macro that matters, gang. And so if I look at, say, Bowman, right? We have Bowman in 19 minutes, Kashkari at 1 p.m., and then we move on to CPI tomorrow. These are all hitting that button of inflation, jobs, and what do Fed members have to say, right, about it. And that's why it's going to be tricky. I got Goolsby here. That's actually a new one that just got added. So Goolsby on Wednesday. So keep an eye on the economic calendars that you watch. My folks in the Sector Secrets Mastery Room. The top tier should be posted later on this morning, and I've got these hot zones listed in that top tier. And then we also have a number of the sectors that we're going to continue to focus on. We've had a very active January in terms of swings, over 20 setups and triggers. Then we're about 6 into February. So the activity level is there because the clarity, if you know where to look, is there. And I'll be talking about where to look, where I am looking, how we're setting up, what we're setting up in the Sector Secrets Mastery on Thursday. So that's just a handful of days away. If you haven't penciled this in already, time to do it with a Sharpie. We're going to be going Thursday, right? February 15th, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, so prime time. So we're going to be talking about what do we do in January? Is it still working in February? It doesn't matter if we had one great month. How many times have you watched someone talk about a great month and the thing went straight up? Who cares? Is this market going straight up? Kinda. So I'll talk about what's working from January to February and whether we can continue that process at scale. But check out what we're doing. I'll be sharing my account growth. This isn't about greatest hits, gang. Account growth. We'll be doing that. simpletrading.com/, I love this URL, becoming consistent. All right, so let's get to it. As always, best part of our show is your questions. And by the way, we'll be taking questions on Thursday. Inevitably, someone's going to say, is this live? It's live. It's darn near past my bedtime. It will be live. Yeah, so we'll be taking questions and talking about current setups. We're not talking about 3 months ago. We're going to be talking about things we've done in the last 1 to 5 weeks, right? What has been happening in 2024? Because frankly, that's all that matters. All right, so let's get to it. First up, David asks, what do I think about RH? Am I allowed to short a stock that's my initials? Is there a rule about that? What do I think about Restoration Hardware, short into monthly? Well, as far as getting into monthly expiration, that's sort of a tangential thing, right? That's a overall potential catalyst for more extreme movement, right? So I love that you're thinking about that. I don't know the seasonality for Restoration Hardware. I mean, when do people buy super expensive furniture? After Christmas? Probably not. I don't know, right? However, and I don't know that I can pull that up. Is there I'll have to look at that later on. But here's what we do know, David, regardless of monthly March expiration, and we haven't gotten through February yet, right? Although clearly the quarterly is a biggie. It's below the 200. So let's talk about where is it at? Where is it in terms of the bullish and bearish hemisphere on the daily time frame? It's in the bearish hemisphere. So I'm with you on the short side. It's mostly been when it does turn into a trend. Most recently, it's a downtrend. But I got to tell you that overall, we've been kind of flip-flopping. Be careful with this one. The last time it was able to get up through the 200 and into the bullish hemisphere was on earnings, and that was short-lived. So I'm with you. We want to focus on the short side. I would, for the most part, say that if we're going to do that, either shorten the time frame to a 1 hour and get more nimble in terms of entries and exits, or the closer we are to say 270 to 275 and a half would be a good zone for what should be toppy, peaky, resistance in RH. But as far as the March, I won't go predicting time. I mean, I don't want to predict anything, but I don't want to go so far as to say this could follow through into March. But I will say that as long as we're below the 200, and for the most part, we're dominated by red candles and the downtrending structure that you can see here, I'll focus on the short side. I'm with you there. All right. Thank you so much, David. BLP asks, what does the data say about Nvidia going into earnings next week? Well, price action, volume, volatility, time, right? This is a parabolic uptrend. Let me, BLP, first of all, and I mean this sincerely, and you should think about it this way too. We don't care what earnings does, right? Is the trade in Nvidia the earnings trade? No. In fact, almost always, I'm never going to say always, but almost always, the better clarity in a trending stock is going to be leading into earnings, the rally into earnings, as opposed to playing the lottery scratch-off ticket of, do we have some exponential move to the up or down side? This has been a real, I mean, look at this. The chart says more than I could ever say. Just bouncing off the gray. Green momentum, green trend, gray zone. And I'll continue to say that as long as we can move down into the gray zone, buy a call at the money or slightly in and look for follow through. I never make comments about what I think earnings are going to do. I have no clue, my friend, and nobody else does either, right? It's really just a guess. And if the guess includes risk management, great, but we don't know. For every move higher, significant move higher in earnings, you end up with an Intel. That's a big old gap down. Are there certain characteristics of stocks that, you can look at historical seasonality or historical results on earnings and say, this is the probability? No way. I do not believe the previous earnings results in any way suggest what's going to happen. What everything is contingent upon is, what do we presume Nvidia is going to do? What is being discounted into Nvidia? In other words, what are traders now discounting into price in terms of expectations for the earnings? That's the trade. And that's why rallies into earnings work, right? And that's why we've seen earnings be good, right? Revenue be good, earnings per share be good, and yet a stock can sell off because that was already priced in, AKA discounted, right? So I don't play the earnings game, but I love the name. I mean, why not continue to buy the dip? But that's been working all year so far, right? BLP, don't wait for earnings to be the reason. Not that I think that's what you're doing, but there's been a half dozen opportunities in far cleaner, clearer, smoother waters and whatever earnings is going to yield. And remember, if we're running out ahead of earnings, if traders are really discounting what could be just home run earnings, even if we get the home run earnings, Nvidia could sell off if that's been discounted. And that's the thing that a lot of traders get blindsided by. So I hope that makes sense. All right. So what else do we have here? And again, just a quick reminder for those of you that just might have joined this Thursday. Look, I can sit here and talk about everything that we're doing, but I'd rather show you, right? Everything that we're doing in the mastery, everything we did in January, everything we're doing now. I'll give you a great example. Our most recent trade was Visa, right? Financials. By the way, who here is up to their eyeballs in folks telling them to be wary of the current environment? Here are the warning signs, and this is what's happening with whatever random market internal, and this is what's going to happen because this is what I'm railing against. If we can take advantage of the trends while they're here, one of the things that saddens me is all, and I haven't seen it yet. And it's okay if you're wondering and if you're nervous about it. But almost every show, someone asks me, what if we get a crash? And then I remember that's because there's folks out there that are telling traders a crash is coming. For how long has that been the case? All last year, right? So far this year, there's a crash coming, right? As we're at all-time highs, there's a crash coming. That comes from traders who are not already long. If you're long, are you sitting around every morning waking up and saying, is there a crash coming? Or are you saying, I just keep hoping we punch up to higher highs because physics 101, Newton tells me a body in motion, right? So please remember, there are trends out there. And if we're able to continue to follow the trends, which is what we do, I'll show you exactly what we've been doing, right? Without fear mongering about, I don't know, market breadth or whatever. Please, please, please follow the trend, because as long as, look, is there going to be a pullback, retracement, crash, correction, fill in the blank? By the way, that's how they keep you tuned into television. No one tunes in when there's good news, right? No one watches the Weather Channel until the hurricane's here, at least in Florida. So remember, bad news does something. It makes you tune in, and that's how they pay the bills, right? They don't care if your account is up. They just want to make sure you're watching the ads. Let's remember that. So could there be a crisis coming? Yes. But in the meanwhile, how about we put profits in our accounts so that if it comes, we've got some unrealized or realized profits to cushion the blow. No one wants to talk about that, right? So people wait on the sidelines waiting for the crash to come that may or may not come. And then what do? Right? So please keep that in mind. I hate that. And by the way, when bots reminding me here, Jamie Dimon has been in the headlines all month saying that there's a credit crisis is coming, the worst we could ever see. Do you think he's here to make PSAs? Do you think any part of Jamie Dimon's job is to help us? I hope no one here is that naive, right? Yeah, thanks, Jamie. That just tells me it's time to, that just tells me to stay bullish. Oh my gosh. All right, moving on. In the same vein as Nvidia, let's talk about AMD. So these are both stocks in the semiconductor, the SMH corner of the broader averages, which, by the way, is still the most relative outperforming sector in all the land. So if we're focusing on strength, why not focus on where the sector is moving higher? And heck, NASDAQ's doing pretty darn well last time I checked too. So AMD, those stocks that are tracking like semiconductors and NASDAQ. Now, what's not? Are all the stocks great? No, some of them are not. So Intel's a no, right? Micron's a maybe. AMD, Nvidia, it's a heck yes, right? And as I say, if it's not a heck yes, it should be just a heck no. So I like the AMD setup. It is no longer as strong a trend as it was, which does not dissuade me from being a buyer. But what I would want to be aware of, and we've got obviously earnings in the rear view, what I want to be aware of are more conservative zones from which I could buy rather than being as aggressive as I would be in a trend. So that really brings into focus things like the ones right here, the 162.50, the 162.60 area. Maybe the lower end of the daily price movement range, maybe the 165.5 area. So let's think about the long side for sure, Pierre, but let's do it from a more conservative trigger. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. Next up is Matt says, that's why I don't listen to financial news. They were modeled after ESPN. If for those of you who don't know that, these channels were modeled after ESPN, and I'm no sooner going to watch ESPN to improve my golf or tennis game than I am to watch the other channel to be a better trader or an investor. It's entertainment. It's information, right? That's it. Yeah, I do keep it on, Matt, from time to time, because let's face it, there's a lot of sheeple out there. And if you can influence people en masse, you're going to influence the market. So I do need to see, unfortunately, what's going on. And I'll usually leave it on mute so it doesn't infect my brain. But yeah, sometimes they can move the market because they are influencing the sheeple out there, right? It's just a fact. It's just a fact. All right. Next up is Sven, MNDY. Sure. Good earnings, but gapping down pre-market. Yeah, this is a great example of what I was mentioning before. See how, thank you for this example and question. I don't know anything about MNDY. I'll be straight up. I have no in-depth knowledge about it. But what I do know, it's been in an uptrend. So go back 6 weeks, Sven. If earnings came out, as you can see here, right, on the 12th, today, earnings came out this morning. Go back, well, it's a month and a half. Go back to the first of the year, right there. Ask yourself, or first trading day of the year, ask yourself, are we above the 200, right? Are we in the bullish hemisphere? Cool. Should I be a buyer of this stock as opposed to a seller? Agreed. I should. In the bullish hemisphere, it makes a lot more sense. Where is it oversold? It's oversold on days like, you can see here, at the 8th, right? It started trending around the 2nd. And then as we come into today, or actually the day to sort of cut everything would be Friday into the close, right? That's it. That's the ride, right? Not today, not this morning. That's the ride. The ride is going into that event. And look at how the ride was pretty darn smooth and clearly bullish. Now we go into the mosh pit, right? You're going to come out with black eyes and bloody noses. Don't want to do that. So now I ask myself, where are we landing at about 200? Yeah, at least it's sitting in areas where there's been support before, right? But I would not buy it today. Let today happen. Let today at least be the one session where everyone who is interested in MNDY gets to express their opinion. Maybe it's bullish, maybe it's bearish, but let it settle down. It's, there's just been this explosion in terms of price, volume, volatility, chaos. Let the dust settle. And then tomorrow, let's see where it is. So I like to give at least one completed session for this earnings stock, whether it's an up or down move, to simmer down, dust to settle, and then we'll have better vision to figure out what's next. And then I can, once again say, all right, are we above key levels? Where is price? What is the structure? Did we maintain the uptrend post earnings? Things like that. Yeah. Anthony, my pleasure. I always think, and this has happened. If I run into a member or a trader out in the wild, whether that's a speaking engagement or whether, heck, even on a plane ride, I've run into members. And I just want to know that I wasn't just pulling the wool over their eyes. Someone was kind enough once upon a time to help me understand how and what's happening, especially at a retail level. I'm not going to pretend I know what's happening within hedge funds and brokerages. That's not even my job, right? But someone said, hey, this is how it works. And this is where you are on the totem pole in terms of being a retail trader. And I just go into it realistically. Yeah. And someone gave me that a long time ago, and it changed my life. It changed my family's life. And that's all I hope to do for everyone else who's taken the time to tune in. All right. And speaking of tuning in, before I go, this Thursday, whenever you have a moment, go register, because even if you can't attend live, which I get it, it'll be 5 o'clock on the West Coast. It'll be 8 o'clock on the East Coast. I know it's a ridiculous time of night, morning in Australia or Europe and the UK. I get it. It's borderline pushing my bedtime too. I like to go to bed early. But if you register, we'll send you out the replay right away. All right. Okay, gang. And if you're there live, even better, we will, as always, have a live Q&A. They are live sessions. They're not recorded. But we will send the recording out afterwards. All right, gang, that's a wrap. I think we got through the questions. As always, thank you for being here for Charts and Coffee. Caffeinate and dominate, gang. I'll talk with you soon.